Hey there guys, I'm Scott Brown, the developer for the game Journey for the Crown, and this is my 19th devlog. Well, I've been keeping busy, working on lots of content. Lately I just picked up this cool asset called Asset Icons, and it's actually really cool. It takes anything that's a scriptable object and allows you to make it a cool little icon, and it even comes with these cool borders. So I've been playing around with that and keeping my items and abilities organized visually inside the editor. And that's traditionally what it looks like here. It's pretty ugly looking in its primary form, but once you get the features rolling, like look at that, those are all scriptable objects. I think it's pretty cool that I'm able to organize them that way. What I was finding was I was getting really confused as I started adding items to bad guys as drops and things like that. So this is just visually so much more it's much clearer for me to understand how it all works. Now the bulk of work lately has been adding enemies, quests, and items to some of these empty zones that I've got. Now, I found that I was trying to keep myself organized and it wasn't working very well. I was using Excel files and I would do stuff in Unity and then I would transfer that data over to Excel in a nice little chart. You know, things like quests and enemies and all that stuff. But I found that I would slip here and there, and some of the information was never getting updated fully. I even have a website that I export a lot of that data through Wikimedia, and it publishes it over there. And I was like, oh, this is also a pretty cool way of doing it as well. But all these things I end up slipping on because it takes me away from my current task, and I'm finding that I like to keep things organized in a different way. I just want to do the tasks that I have to do without all these little side tasks that have incorporated into building this game. So I limited it down to a few steps, and it seems to help a lot. So having all these items inside Unity where I can visually see them, I decided I'm going to throw them in little folders for every scene in the game, and that way I can see how empty a scene is of items or how full a scene has with items, and work from that way. And I think I'm getting more done this way than the other way I'd set it up. I just found there was too many little tasks involved, and you slip on one step and it just breaks the whole thing. So that may seem silly to some people, like, oh, why didn't you think of that? But I guess I work differently than some people, and sometimes I learn the hard way. Another to-do task that I had to do was put together all the items that I've painted onto meshes. And the reason why I needed to do this is because the way I work, I don't really want to have to do a task and all of a sudden, in order to complete that task, I got to finish some unfinished work on another task. So I, a long time ago, painted a whole bunch of art and models while I was watching Game of Thrones with my wife. And I never got around to actually completing that task by putting them into the game. And now that I'm using scriptable objects, there's a lot of work that I kind of just skipped over. So I have to go through this giant list here and add each individual one into the game as a scriptable object. And the reason why I want to do that is because if I just have a default state of an item, I can duplicate that item, put it over into the scene it belongs to, change the stats around, and boom, we have ourselves a really cool looking item. And what I was finding was I did have a bulk of them done. Like I'd say about like 30% of them done. And a lot of the items in my games were starting to get a little bit repetitive. While I've got so many stockpiled in the game that are not designed into scriptable objects. So that's what I've been doing lately, is just going through, making myself icons that go with it, ensuring that I have the proper art file that is used on the model for the texturing. Now, I had this other problem in the game where I seem to be reusing some of the same enemies in the game, and that's a very, very common thing to do in RPG games. But what I really hadn't thought out was some cool names for them. And I thought, would it be really neat if I had some sort of ranking amongst the undead, because the game is heavily focused around undead enemies. And there's other clans like gnolls and goblins and orcs and all that stuff. But the main is the undead legion that the necromancer is controlling. Now, my initial design was I'm just going to have a bunch of, they're called Deadwalkers in my game. And I was just going to have like different levels of Deadwalkers, but I wanted neat names and stuff like that. So I used a little chat GPT and had some help with that and coming up with some different names. And now I'm kind of, for every scene that you see a Deadwalker, they'll have like a different kind of name. And that way, that also helps when I go to upload all this stuff to the website that they don't conflict. So when you see a Deadwalker, it'll be part of this first scene you see. It'll have a few items, but then you'll see another one. It'll be like Enraged Deadwalker or, you know, Undead Ex-Girlfriend Hag, that kind of stuff, you know. So all this stuff will have a special place on the website, and it also will tell people, you know, what zone they come from and that sort of thing. So I'm keeping it all separate and going through every zone and adding a cool little name for it. And you'd be surprised, it's just this endless amounts of cool names you can add to these enemies. Essentially, they are kind of the same model after all, but I did spend quite a bit of time going through and adding new abilities to each one of them. So some of them will have like ranged abilities, while others are just very basic and hit you with their hands. I've got some that do like mesmerizing spells around them. Like for instance, all the female undeads, they have a shriek. And there's another one where they siphon life out of you. So there's lots of cool new abilities that I spent some time on. And yeah, that's me making those sound effects, by the way. And if you really want to see the fun stuff, come on over to Twitch and see me try and do some of these sound effects for these abilities. The last time I was streaming, I accidentally forgot to hit the mute button while I was making them, and everybody had a good laugh at all the different sounds I could make. Embarrassing, but it was totally hilarious. Anyways, guys, that's it. That's all I got for this devlog. I really hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you over on Twitch. Make sure you like and subscribe the video so you can push me up on YouTube's pathetic algorithm. I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video. Cheers. Thanks.